This year, two of the most talked about and best-selling and critically acclaimed albums share one common similarity. Brat by Charli XCX and Chromakopia by Tyler, the Creator are both about these artists turning 30. And it's really cool that there are not just one, but two albums about turning 30. And it's interesting seeing how each artist explores turning 30 in different ways, but also in very similar ways. These albums have three main topics in common that they explore. There are three different overarching questions. Number one, am I where I'm supposed to be? Have I accomplished enough? Two is them reflecting on past memories, like asking, how did I get here? Did I make the right decisions to get here? Are those decisions that I've made going to lead me to where I want to be in the future? And number three, both albums ask, should I have kids? And Charli could party and be herself all she wants. Tyler could sell out tours, buy cars, make records, design fashion, all he wants. But these questions are always hanging in the back of their minds. And both of these records are very special for the individual artist. Charli's album has her leaning heavy into club music, but despite prioritizing danceability, it manages to pack a lot of depth in the lyrics, which is what makes the album so special. Meanwhile, Chromakopia is Tyler's most introspective and emotionally serious album yet, but it still has all the different musical motifs and stuff that we expect from a Tyler album. And both albums start off with the artists just totally being themselves. Charli's first two songs are just club bangers. They're songs about partying, having a good time. She's young at heart. She still has energy. Tyler starts with Saint Chroma, where he asks, does he still feel alive? Does he still feel the fire that he once did? And Ratata is just him having fun. It's just him messing around on the mic, spitting bars, and he has the most hilarious ad-libs. The ad-libs are so silly on this. My favorite one is where he just straight up goes, I'm a fish. And what is fascinating to me is track 3 on both of these albums are about how the artists feel paranoid. Tyler's song is called Noid, and it's about him being suspicious of everyone outside. Like, they're all watching him or just waiting to pounce and take advantage of him. People might be trying to kill him. People might be trying to rob him. Women might be with him just to take from him. Then on Brat, Sympathy is a Knife is about how Charli feels like all of these people are smiling at her face, but secretly are preying on her demise. She feels like everyone might be secretly working against her, and she doesn't know who she could trust. And this is one of these very natural but not talked about enough things about turning 30 is when you've been around for a while, the longer you lived, the more you've been burned, and the harder it is to be easygoing and assume the best of people because you were no longer naive. You've had tough things happen to you. You've had people betray you, and now you have your guard up. With all the pain that's come from all these life experiences, you're constantly on edge, trying to have all of these things from your past not happen to you again. I might say something stupid is the first bit of introspection we get on Brat. The first moment where Charli thinks, maybe she doesn't want to party forever. Maybe she just wants a normal life. She hasn't accomplished everything she wanted to by this point in her life, and she wonders if this is all she's going to do. Am I where I'm supposed to be? Have I accomplished enough? These are the questions on this song, and this is some 30-year-old shit. But this is the ultimate contradiction about turning 30, is while you have more questions and more anxieties about your place in the world, at the same time, you are also more confident and more secure and more sure of your favorite parts about yourself. And this confidence is on display on Von Dutch. The confidence that is on Von Dutch is something that could only come with experience. She's accomplished a lot in her life that she can look back on and be proud of. And if people try to question that, she knows for sure that she did what she did and she is that person. Tyler also has this outlook on life. He also has this newfound security, but specifically with romantic partners. Tyler comes to the conclusion that he doesn't want to settle down with one person, and he's finally secure and sure enough of himself to be able to say that. Judge Judy is about how he can't judge other people for doing what they feel comfortable doing, and Darling I is about how he finds so much to love about so many people that he doesn't think he could choose just one person. He keeps falling in love, and I like this outlook because I feel like I have the opposite problem. I feel like I don't meet a lot of people I like. I don't keep falling in love. I keep finding things I don't like about people. So part of me does envy this outlook, but at the same time, this does come with a cost for Tyler. He does start to wonder if refusing to settle down is going to be something that he regrets in his old age. Hey Jane is about a pregnancy scare where a woman Tyler's been with might be pregnant, and this woman is 34 and she's considering keeping the baby because she always wanted to be a mother, and she's at that age where time could be running out for her. And this incident has Tyler starting to think, you know, maybe it is time for him to be a father. Maybe he does want a kid. He's not sure if he wants to have a kid or not, but he is getting to an age where he should maybe figure that out. Later on Take Your Mask Off, he imagines a scenario where he continues to live his life exactly how he is right now, and it leads to him being unhappy as an old man. Because he lived his life selfishly and he was afraid of being a parent, he ends up old and alone because he put all his stock on his music career and on his creativity. And while that was rewarding in his youth and in his 30s, a lot of artists struggle to continue success in their old age. As times change, but the artists stay the same, their work risks becoming less relevant and less in vogue. And Tyler's afraid that that could happen to him. And if his art ceases to be successful, what does he have left? Then on the very next song, Tomorrow, it opens with his mother just begging Tyler to give her grandchildren. And he starts to think about how his mother is growing older, and so is he, and all of his friends are having kids, and they're showing him photos of their kids, and all he has is his music and his cars and just stuff that feels superficial in comparison. I think about it all the time. Has Charli thinking about the exact same things? She's wondering about the future. Is it time to have kids? What would she give up by moving on to this stage of life? Is she missing out on something, or is she on the right track and should continue doing what she's doing? And this is really interesting to me because Charli is at a very different place recording Brat than Tyler was making Chromacopia. Tyler, the creator, got success pretty quickly. Like, the first music he made at 16 became pretty popular, and it's just been a constant upward trajectory for him ever since. Meanwhile, Charli has been chasing being a pop star for a really long time, and she's put in a lot of work and made great, very well respected music, but until Brat, she has struggled to really achieve the career heights that she was aiming for. Of course, she made a living making music and had a very rabid fan base, which is more than most people could ask for, but she was chasing that upper echelon of pop music success. That is clearly what she's trying to do on a lot of her records. And as she was entering her early 30s, it was starting to look like maybe that would never happen to her. And a lot of us are more so in the Charli camp. We have a goal that we're chasing, and we haven't quite gotten it yet. And we might start to wonder if maybe it's time to give up on that. On Rewind, Charli is asking these questions. She's wondering if she should have more commercial success than she currently has. Rewind is a lot of Charli second-guessing her place in the world and weighing what you have accomplished versus what you feel like you should have accomplished. But it's also her just longing for those simpler times where these questions weren't on her mind. When she was younger and felt more freedom to just exist as she is, whereas now that she's a 30-year-old, she has more expectations placed on her. In kind of a similar nostalgic vein, Mean Girls is about her describing someone in her mid-20s and looking at it through the lens of Brat is about Charli turning 30, you could kind of sense that she's speaking from the perspective of someone that was once this girl and kind of misses being that. Then continuing down the themes of looking back at the past, So I is looking back at the people you've lost, because death is an unfortunate part of life, and the longer you've lived, the more death you're going to experience. And as you age, you're going to start experiencing more and more of your loved ones passing, and those first deaths are especially crazy. And it's also crazy thinking about the people that were your age and didn't make it to where you are now. And Tyler also looks to the past in Chromacopia. Like him, is about him re-examining his relationship with his dad. And he's made songs about this before, but before he always had this resentment or maybe even hatred for his dad not being around. But on this song, he almost comes to an understanding that maybe his dad might not have been a bad person. Or what even is a bad person? Because now that Tyler's older, he understands more about what his dad might have been going through now that he's at a similar age. He also recognizes that the situation was more complex than what he imagined it as a child. And his mother also had reasons for not wanting him around. And Charli also explores themes of family on Apple. The apple not falling far from the tree, that is about her and her parents. She's realizing how similar she is to her parents. And that could be a weird realization because sometimes she's had a complicated relationship with them. And that could be scary and frustrating. But also in Tyler's case, it can lead to empathy and understanding. And it could recontextualize some of those memories that you have with your parents. This confusion around relationships also continues in Girls So Confusing, which is about the misunderstandings and disagreements that could happen between friends and acquaintances. Because again, things are less simple now. The further you get more into adulthood, the more expectations are placed on relationships of all kinds. The longer you've been alive, the more hurt you feel. And on these albums, you could hear how these two artists have been hurt by the public, by people they trusted, by complicated relationships with parents and romantic partners and friends. And it could be so easy to lose hope when you've been exposed to how cruel and ugly the world could be. So as you get older and experience all this hurt, how do you maintain hope? And I think Charli comes to a great conclusion on her song, Everything is Romantic. You have to learn to fall in love again and again. As you get older and live more life, you will witness and experience so much more hardship that you have to become intentional about looking for beauty. You have to find it in the little things that you might miss. The bad tattoos, leather tan skin, winding roads, manual drive. You have to be looking for that beauty or all the romance will disappear from your life. And that romance is worth holding on to. But also, just a quick side note, since you have to be more intentional about maintaining optimism and finding beauty in your 30s, when you reach 30, you naturally become a bit of a hater. Like, being a hater starts to become more and more the default. And I just wanted to point that out because that is also present on both of these albums. On Spring Breakers, Charli says she never gets invited because she's such a hater. And Tyler, the Creator's Thought I Was Dead has some of the most iconic hater lines ever. His whole verse is about how he's a hater. And I legit, I have to consciously limit how much I listen to this song because if I listen to Thought I Was Dead too much, this song legitimately gets me worked up. Like when he says 5 in the morning, I'm hating on shit. 10 in the evening, I'm hating on shit. I start to think about everyone that's ever wronged me. Every little thing I am mad about in that moment. And I'm just sitting there stewing I'll moonwalk over that bitch. But still, regardless of that, both of these albums end on a positive note. 365 is Brat's big closer, and it has Charli continuing to do what she does. She's going to continue doing her as messy and imperfect as she might be, because that's all she can do. That's really all any of us can do. She'll make mistakes, but she could figure it out. And she's comfortable continuing to live her life, finding her own happiness, and trying to find meaning and peace as best she can. And Tyler finds himself in the exact same place on the last 2 songs of Chromacopia. Balloon has him embracing all the things we've talked about. He is chasing his own happiness. He has less time for things that don't serve him and wants to focus on things that uplift him and make him happy. And that could be a good thing. That could also be that he's living selfishly in a way that he might regret. But he's come to a point where he's just accepting who he is. He is letting the weight float off of him like it's attached to a balloon. Then I Hope You Find Your Way Home has him doubling down on him just being himself, living how he wants to, but he also echoes the sentiment that he hopes other people find that same happiness. He hopes other people find their way home. So ultimately, it's really cool that we're living in a time where not just one, but 2 of the most culturally significant and popular albums are about such mature subject matter. But naturally, that had me wondering, why is this? Like, why now? Artists have been turning 30 for forever. Why is it now that we're getting 2 major albums about turning 30? And I have a few guesses. For one, I think the millennial generation is more reluctant to let go of the things that made them happy from their youth. And I feel like that's why there are 2 such energetic albums from traditionally youth-centric genres like club music and hip-hop that are still about these themes and subject matters. These artists don't want to let go of these genres they love. They're just going to force the genres to grow with them. But also, music wasn't like this all the time. It wasn't that every single artist has to be young and focused on things that young people do. Like in the 80s, an artist like Phil Collins is allowed to just look like a 30-year-old and have the hairline of a 30-year-old. And people just accepted that because the music was good. Somewhere something switched, like maybe with the advent of video and TV, that image had to become more important and everyone had to look sexy, and older people are trying their best to maintain youth and look young. And sometimes I lament some of the great music that we'll never get to hear because the artist didn't fit a certain image. But another guess is I also think economically and the way the music industry has been run lately is it's become harder and harder for younger artists to find success. So this creates a situation where either older established artists are holding on to their spot for longer, or on the flip side, it's taking younger artists a lot longer to come up. The starving artist is a trope for a reason. It's always been hard to make a living in the arts, but as it gets harder and harder for everyone to make a living, artists are just going to get poorer and poorer. And that lack of resources and the more work it takes to survive, it's going to take a lot longer for these artists to have their visions fully realized. It's going to take more effort to put less things out in the world. Just as a little experiment, it feels to me like artists are getting older, but I wanted to test this. So I took the top 10 artists on Billboard for a week in mid-November before Christmas music started getting on the charts. And I compared the average age of all those artists with the average age of the top 10 artists from the same week 10 years ago. And what I found is the average age of every artist in the top 10 in 2014 was 25.07. And the average age of all the artists in 2024 is 29.75. And this is just 1 week. I would have to do like the entire year at least to have concrete evidence. But what we see here is the average age of everyone in the top 10 is almost 30, whereas 10 years ago, it was a very young 25. So yeah, I think the way the economy is and the way the music industry has been failing, it's going to be more and more common to see artists like Jelly Roll, who have had to grind for a long time with moderate success, doing small to mid-level shows and then having their big breakout moment at the age of like 39. And finally, one last note before I close. Obviously, this video interested me because I turned 30 this year. At the time of recording, it's just a little over 2 months, so I am a fresh 30. But honestly, yeah, a lot of the things that are talked about in these two albums are things that I am also very much going through. But at the same time, it's so weird that there are these expectations and anxieties placed on being 30 at all, because truthfully, I don't feel that much different. Like 26 was the year where I actually felt older, where I was like, okay, now I have to sleep and work out and eat healthy or I'm going to feel like shit. But 30, I don't feel that different. Actually, it's the weirdest thing. I cut my hair shorter a few months ago, and for some reason, ever since I did that, people assume I'm a whole lot younger than I actually am. Like, I get ID'd everywhere now, which hasn't happened in years. So no one even seems to think I'm 30. But the main thing I have noticed is it does become a lot harder to maintain joy. Like, I meet a lot more people now that just seem to have no life in their eyes. Like, they find less and less things invigorating. They feel trapped in this life that they don't want. Like, Everything Is Romantic is for real a very powerful song and sentiment, because when you're at this age, you really do have to be intentional about finding things that bring you joy and spreading joy to others, or you could easily succumb to the darkness and everything negative that's around you. Let's see, what else? All my friends are married. I spend a lot more time alone because of that. Dating is harder. Dating apps suck a lot more now. Like, I feel like the things that actually age you, the next big milestones, are getting married, having a kid, maybe buying a house. And since I haven't done any of those things, like, how different am I really from when I was 24? Like, other than having more money and being a little more secure in myself, I don't feel that different from that guy. I'm just a secure, stable version of him. I'm not someone different. I am an artist. I'm a filmmaker, and I've prioritized that in my life. And making the choice to prioritize that and all the things that you give and take from doing that has definitely affected my life in ways that I'm noticing more now. So I relate a lot to Chromakopia in that regard, even though I'm nowhere near as successful as Tyler is. I don't feel too insecure about my career. Like, since I'm a filmmaker, most directors make their first feature in their mid-30s. So when I look at it that way, I'm on a good track still. I do wish I had more money. I do wish I was doing bigger things, but I trust the process. If you want another album about turning 30 that came out this year, this Medium Build album, Country by Medium Build, is great. And he comes at it from a very different place than Brat and Chromakopia, because this is like his first major label release. So he was in a situation much more similar to a lot of us as he was writing a lot of this music. Like, Known by None, Can't Be Cool Forever. They're great songs about aging that cover different things than the two albums we talked about. But yeah, finally, being 30, it just feels like the age where it's time to make shit happen. Like, we've spent your whole 20s kind of figuring yourself out, figuring out what you want to do, and now it's time to actually execute. And on one hand, that's very exciting because it's time to actually do the things you said you were going to do. But on the other hand, it's very nerve-inducing because You now have to do all the things you said you were going to do. And if you want to help me do the things I've set out to do, I am currently in pre-production on my next film called Locked In. Locked In is a horror comedy about a musician, a guy that grew up as a sheltered church choir kid, but wants to be a hip-hop artist. He was warned that all these artists are demonic, and as he's in his first studio session with a legit superstar, he's about to find out if they're as demonic as his church warned him they are. I'm currently in pre-production in the final stages of gathering my crew, and sometime early next year, we will be launching a crowdfunding campaign. There's a link in the description if the campaign is live. If the campaign is not live, I have a link to an email list where you could sign up and be notified when it does go live. I also have a link to a pitch video where you could see more details about what the film is, my vision for it, what it's about, all that. You could also subscribe to keep up with this and the rest of my videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.